What up, everyone? This is Mr. Lord Dark Professor Dark Joker with this week's video. This week, it's going to be about Superman's James Gunn. Because let's be real, that was a James Gunn movie. That was not a Superman movie. James Gunn cannot handle Golden Age characters, and probably a lot of Silver Age characters either, like Supergirl. Anyway, so this week, give it the spoiler regarding Jor-El and Lara Lor-Van's message to Superman, basically revealing that you know those two characters are evil. I'm going to go over whether or not Supergirl is evil, since she might know about the message, what it actually is, how Jor-El and Lara Lor-Van really are. So, yeah, I'm going to go over what we know about the character, what we know about possible origins they may use for her, and how it could relate to the movie, her upcoming movie coming next year. Look out! Yeah, look out, because she's drunk. Yeah. So yeah, with all that being said, on with the video. First, I'm going to go into what we know about, like, what happened in the Superman movie, that pile of crap, and what we know about the characters, what we know that could give us clues as to whether or not Supergirl is evil. Jor-El and Lara Lor-Van. What we know about these two is that they sent Superman to conquer Earth, to kill humans who cannot and will not serve him effectively. Form a secret harem of women to restore Kryptonian society. Hashtag secret harem. And rule without mercy. Yeah, that was just so freaking retarded. Like, anyone, like, yeah. Anyone who thinks that this was a good idea and, like, and basically all you're just, oh, it was in the comics. No, what they were not evil in the comics. They may not have been the most emotional people, but they were not evil. Like, whether it was in Smallville, where it was in John Byrne's Man of Steel, they may have lacked in emotion and were, a lot of tough love. They were not evil. There is a big difference between tough love and villainy. And then now, as far as their message goes, Angela Spica, aka the engineer, found and restored, their message because, the part of it that revealed that they were evil, it was damaged. So basically, whenever the engineer, Lex Luthor, and Ultraman infiltrated the Fortress of Solitude, they found the message. Engineer basically restored it. And then Lex Luthor showed the English translation of it on the news. And all the data analysts and Mr. Terrific confirmed it as genuine in the movie. Now, and James Gunn, in an interview, confirmed that the English translation was canon. He confirmed it. So anyone who's coping and saying that it was doctored, as things stand right now, that is not the case. And if it was, it would have been explained in the movie. Now, that being said, could they retcon it later and saying that it was doctored? Yes, but they will not do it because James Gunn won't do it because he wants to. He'll do it because of the backlash. Like, they could do that and say, oh yeah, it was fake. The engineer changed the message and due to her powers, experts could not get they can't they can't figure out if it they can only see it as genuine due to the nature of the engineer's powers, and that would make sense and that should have been explained in the movie. But if they say it, they may say, oh, it was always part of the plan to reveal that the message was fake. Oh, it was always our plan. It's not. It's not. James Gunn basically confirmed it as such. Some people will forget and cope and say, "See, it was doctored. You should trust. You can't trust Lex Luthor." Let's be real. No one trusts Lex Luthor. No one does. But we recognize reality. The reality is, as things stand right now, Jor-El, Lara Lor-Van are evil. So anyone who says that, you're just coping. You're just being retarded. Like there may some people may know what you're talking about in some things, but except the fact that Jor-El, Lara Lor-Van are evil in this movie, and it's one of the most retard. It's worse than letting uh, John Kent die in a tornado. It is worse than that. Like the retcon, and and I can guarantee if the retcon does happen, they'll say, "See, we were right. We told you it was doctored." But okay, it was doctored, but that was not the case in Superman in the movie. James Gunn said the translation was genuine. The guy who made the movie, who can't do Superman, who can't do anyone from the Golden Age, he said the translation was canon. Now, should it be retcon? Yes. They should listen to the fans and retcon. But as things stand right now, that is not the case. People who are in the know will know what James Gunn's original intentions were, and if he fixes it, we'll respect that. But it doesn't mean we won't be pissed about what he did. So yeah, it's just coping if you think that it's always in the plan to retcon it as doctored. Kara Zor-El, aka Linda Lee Danvers, aka Supergirl. Now, there are two origins that James Gunn can use for Supergirl. One is the Argo City origin, one is the Phantom Zone origin. Now, the Argo City origin, basically, here's how it goes if it's used. Zor-El, who's Jor-El's brother and Kara Zor-El's father, he built a force field around Argo City. Now, that when Krypton exploded, it allowed the city to basically just break apart and drift away. So the city was safe. So there are some surviving Kryptonians other than, Superman, Crypto. Now, Crypto basically probably would be on Argo City due to him being Supergirl's dog. And Supergirl was born years after Krypton's destruction. So she didn't live on Krypton in the Argo City origin, or at least the main planet. She just lived in Argo City. And now, when she's like a teenager, the soil on Argo City starts turning into kryptonite, which, poisons basically the people on, Argo City. So she is sent by her father Zor-El to Earth. You know, I can't remember if Zor-El knew about Kal-El being on Earth, and or if that's just a planet he has found, similar to Jor-El. I can't remember if he knew about Kal-El being on Earth. Anyway, so Argo City turns to kryptonite and is destroyed. Everyone dies, and Supergirl is sent to Earth. And I guess since Crypto's her dog hurt, Crypto would be sent as well. Now, if the Phantom Zone origin is used, then Supergirl was been born years before Krypton's destruction. So instead of being younger than Superman, like she is in the Argo City origin, she's technically older than him in the Phantom Zone origin. Now, and she was sent to Earth at the same time as Superman to watch over him because Superman was a baby. But Supergirl went off course and was trapped in the Phantom Zone for years. So like her aging stopped. Like she didn't age when she was in the Phantom Zone. So basically that's why she's a teenager when she arrives on Earth, even though she was born before Superman, because she was trapped in the Phantom Zone. And this is the origin that the Supergirl TV show used. That's why they had the joke of Supergirl saying she changed Superman's diapers, which that admittedly that joke was funny. I will admit that was actually a funny joke. It's one of the few, probably one of the few, the only jokes that was actually good in that show. Of course, that show sucked. Anyway, moving on from that terrible CW show. Now, in what we know in Superman man's James Gunn is that Supergirl goes to red sun planets to get drunk because in yellow sun planets like Earth, if she drinks, she can't get drunk due to I guess how the regeneration stuff like that, And so she gets drunk on red sun planets. Now, how in the world she leaves those planets, I don't know, because red sun planets like Krypton, obviously she has the abilities of a regular Her power level is on the level of like a regular human, simply put. Now I don't know if she ages like regular people, but like basically, like she goes to some plans to party and get drunk, which is why she left Crypto with Superman. And her film's gonna be based off of Tom Keene's Woman of Tomorrow, which is where the alcohol stuff comes from. Now, why in the world they're using Tom Keene? James Gunn's using Tom Keene, anything for Tom? I don't know. If you're adapting anything for American comics, there are people you don't adapt any work from. Tom Keene is one. You don't do Tom Keene. You don't do Gail Simone, Nia DaCosta, or whoever. Well, no, she was producer. I don't think she wrote any comics. I can't remember. There's so many bad current day writers. I can't keep up with all of them. Because basically, a lot the people who currently work on Marvel, DC, like they don't like just don't adapt anything they write. Simple as that. Like a lot of your greats, like Mark Millar, Mike Barron, Chuck Dixon, Graham Nolan, they do their own stuff. Their stuff from when they worked for those companies should be what's adapted. Not not anything by these current day people. Anyway, so yeah, Woman Tomorrow, and then she's obviously very bad at training Crypto the super dog. Like that's why Crypto's not a good dog. Unlike in the comics, because Crypto is a good boy in the comics. He is a good boy. And like if you look at the pre-crisis continuity, Crypto, like, well, there's a very sad reason he's not in Crisis of the Infinite Earths because I can't remember if that comic released after Crisis or before Crisis, but basically, when Superman fights Kryptonite Man, Superman's basically about to get killed. The guy's made out of kryptonite, so obviously he's like made out of Superman's wing. So Krypto saves Superman by biting Kryptonite Man's neck, which kills Kryptonite Man, but it also poisons Krypto with kryptonite and kills him. So Krypto dies of kryptonite poisoning after saving Superman. So it's a very tragic death. Krypto is a good dog, though. He was trained by Jor-El and Lara Lor-Van. He was trained, and he was a good dog. Like, what the heck were they doing with this movie with Krypto? Like, they made an alcoholic Supergirl be the one to train him, and that's why he's a bad dog. I mean, come on. Yeah, it's just so retarded. Now let's look at the possible scenarios that could be done with, Supergirl, like 2026, like determine whether or not she is evil or not. Now, first, let's go over if the Argo City origin is used. So, if that origin is used, then one possible outcome could be Zor-El and Alora NZ. So, Alora NZ is Supergirl's mother. They could be opposed to Jor-El and Lara Lor-Van within James Gunn's continuity. And so Supergirl could have grown up not knowing about, you know, what was the deal with Jor-El and Lara. So she could have may have not known and didn't know about the full message. Now, that being said, if Zor-El and Laura are evil, Supergirl's motives are questionable as a result. Like, so, because she would vividly remember her own parents. So if they're evil and tell her the stuff, her motives are questionable. Now, if the Phantom Zone origin is used, that means that Supergirl grew up on Krypton and knew Jor-El and Lara Lor-Van. So she likely would know about them being evil and could be in on it, which is why her motives are in question if the Phantom Zone origin is used. Now, for my personal conclusions. So, I think that the Phantom Zone origin is going to be used. Now, why? It's to tie Supergirl to the truth about the House of L, and to explain if the translation is accurate. Whether or not they decide to retcon it or not. And also, the Phantom Zone origin allows a potential appearance from General Drew Zod because General Zod and his people, they were trapped in the Phantom Zone, so that could possibly lead to Zod appearing in Supergirl. Now, and if the translation is not retconned as fake, that means Supergirl knew the truth, and I think, and she just chose not to tell Superman about it. Why? Who knows? I mean, she's obviously not a very responsible person, but they may say, "Oh, I wanted to protect Superman's opinion, like views about his parents, and wanted to burn him with the truth, or didn't want to be tempted by, his parents' words." And she could, or and if her parents were in on it as well, she could say, "Yeah, my parents told me." I said, "Screw it, I'm gonna party and get laid." I mean, that's basically she's gonna be a terrible human, a terrible like person. I think Supergirl is gonna be a terrible person. The film will not portray her as evil. I think it could end up being like Ironheart, and when it comes and when it comes to like her personality, where she's basically evil, but the the movie won't. So the movie, the way it's structured, won't see her as evil, but most viewers, most normal viewers will see her as evil. Kind of like with Ironheart. Guess like most normal people saw Ironheart as evil. She made a deal with Mephisto for wanting to have. She just wanted the better armor and wanted wanted some fake, some AI thing back. Well, it was resurrected as like a person. Well, whatever. You know, then so retarded. And so there's what's different than like Ghost Rider, who was not fully aware about what he was doing and did to save his adoptive father in the comics, or and biological father in the movie. A little more noble intentions. So I think Supergirl is basically going to be evil, but the film won't won't, I guess, call her evil because you have the difference between sympathetic villains and tragic villains are villains who, well, both are villains who have bad stuff happen to them, and that leaves them being tragic villains. Of course, the big difference is tragic villains, their villainy is not excused within the story. While sympathetic villains, their villainy is excused, which is why audiences generally hate sympathetic villains. They like tragic villains better. So I think Supergirl is going to be portrays like a sympathetic villain that they won't even try to call a villain. So I think she is evil, but it's probably going to be like like the Cruella movie, or like or crap, like basically a lot of your that we've seen in recent years, this whole sympathetic villain, which is one of the most retarded things ever. That is how she's going to be portrayed. She's going to be the protagonist. We're like, no, she's not evil. Here's the thing. I think Supergirl's going to be evil, just due to the nature of how Hollywood likes to portray some characters. Given what we've seen of Supergirl, she is going to be evil, but it's not. But she's like going to be seen as like a superhero by people, when in reality she's basically evil. And we're basically probably going to be rooting for the villain. We'd probably be rooting for General Zod or someone. So yeah, My so overall, my conclusion: Supergirl is evil, and that's it. Did y'all like this video? Do you agree with my takes? Is there any other background information that I missed regarding Jor-El, Lara Lor-Van, Supergirl that you know that I forgot or didn't include, whatever? And do you agree with my conclusions of whether or not about Supergirl being evil? Do you think the Argo State origin will be used? Do you think Phantom Zone origin will be used? And do you think my ideas on what possibly could occur with those two origins? Do you think something else could occur with those? Or you think a completely different origin is going to be used? What do you think? You can put all that in the comments. Put all that in the comments below, and like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. Look forward to the next video.